Hey, good evening. This is Barb Pask. Going to paint tonight. I'll show you what I'm doing. Set up a little still life there. Let me click the light off so you can see it. 3 little objects. I chose the 2 objects on the right because I felt like they worked together color-wise. And then I wanted something that would be my focal point that was very different. So I chose the little bird. So we're going to do it on an 8x10. And we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to mix up what I would call a mud. Years ago, I've taken several workshops with Chuck Marshall. He's a local artist here and very good artist. And he occasionally does it. I know he doesn't do it all the time, but he sometimes mixes up what he'll call a mud, which is a grayed color that can lean toward warm or cool. And the idea of it is that you mix it up and you put it in a little bit of everything, some of it in different amounts, in everything that goes on your canvas. So you work to make color harmony. This is a little painting that I did that way. I had mixed up a kind of a gray-green color, and it went in to every color that I put on this canvas. So hopefully it feels that way to you, that it has a nice color harmony. But that's the idea behind it. Just something to do, something different if you haven't tried it before. So working on an 8x10, and I chose to go horizontal. Get us over there. And let's bring you over here first. Angle you down to my palette, my messy palette, which I need to clean up. Talk about what we're doing here first. Have I got you low enough there? I'm just going to mix up a gray, kind of muddy color that will go into everything. So I have to decide. I have cool colored objects up there. So I'm thinking the mud pile that I may make up, that I'm thinking that I want it cool. So when I make a gray, I just use the 3 primaries. So that's ultramarine. Put some yellow in there, which makes a green. And to kill the intensity and make it a gray, you always go for the complement, which is red. You know, and I know it looks pretty dark, and I'm probably just going to leave it that way because I'm going to be mixing it in with other things. So that's the idea. You just mix up a puddle, and you actually could scoop together all your colors at the end of your painting session and have a pile of gray. A lot of people do that. They save their paint and they mix that in to things. But again, color harmony is what we're going for here. Just another thing to try, right? So I may have to back you up and crank you around. We'll get you there yet. So you are pretty dead on to it, so you might be in my way a little bit. We'll do the best we can do. We're going to use our dirty view catcher. I am going to buy another one of these and shock the heck out of you sometime. I just never think about it. I've set it for an 8x10. I looked through it, and I looked at it vertically and I looked at it horizontally, and I decided I liked it best horizontally. I have propped my items up a little bit, and I have a light on it, as you could see, and a screen behind it. So we could use this to sketch with even if we wanted, because it's a dark, and but I think I'm going to save it and mix up ultramarine and transparent red oxide, which is what I usually sketch with, and that's what I'm going to sketch with. I put a tone on the canvas, as you can see. Not much thought behind it, just wanted to get some color on it. Now I'm looking through this, and I pretty much, I want the objects big. That's one thing I'll say to you too. If you're new to painting still lifes, paint them big. You might even run them off. I've noticed that about a lot of beginner artists. They'll paint a little tiny thing in the middle of the canvas. You know, that's one nice thing about this. I'm looking through there before I begin. I'm looking at how it'll look on the canvas. I know the height of the bottle's about there. Okay, I'm using the handle of my paintbrush, looking through here, picking out my heights. It's very useful. The bottle's about down in there. The edge of little blue face is about there. You know, but don't be afraid to go large enough. All right, as I'm looking through this, I'm feeling like the bird should come forward more, because the bird's tail and the top of my vase are lining up, because they're pretty similar in size and I don't want them to line up. So we brought the bird a little bit more forward. So I'm just making some marks to help myself to see where things are landing. The bird's going to come down pretty far now. You know, I've talked about it before. Another way to do this is to, Helen Van Wyck used to work this way. She would make like just places for objects to be, and then she would sketch them in. You know, like one thing is here, and that's kind of how she worked. And then she would sketch within those. Because if you just take off sketching without any thought beforehand, you're probably going to end up too large or too small, or maybe you won't. Maybe you're good at it and you won't, and, you know. I need the help. We're all different. It's a pretty little greenish, bluish jar that I've had for years. Thin this down a little bit. And I'm in no hurry to start, so we'll play around with this part of it as long as we need to. And I was saying, you know, if you save your, they call it mud from your previous painting, you know, you can throw a little bit of that in everything. And that's some of the thought process behind not cleaning your brush. really well over and over is that you do end up mixing, you know, colors together, which I think again helps create some color harmony. So we've got a nice shadow back here. Some of it's dark, some of it's coming through the bottle. I always say that, but we're kind of doing a value sketch here too, so. Just felt like doing a still life. I just never tire of them. And the bird, of course, is white, and we'll be mixing, you know, some of our mud into that too. All right, so I'm looking for the darkest darks that I see. It's very dark right there. And I got a dark here. Let's take our little scraper and I want to remove paint there. That's the cork, and it's light. Sorry, we got a stretch canvas this time, and obviously I can't really tape it down, so it may be moving around on us. I like the hard panels better. I just ordered a bunch of them. They'll be in Saturday, but and with the stretch canvas, I find that you've got to work a little harder to fill the tooth of it in. But that's me. Maybe you don't feel that way about it. All right. I think that's enough to get going. You know, you could go so far, because it's a darker background, you could block the whole background in. But I don't want to cover up all our tone either, so I'm not going to do that. All right, washing out our brush. We'll go get a brush that's a bit bigger here. All right. I think we'll go after that bird first, the lightest light. So we'll take some pure white. Now, like everything that you paint, you always got to remember that you don't want to go, like we've got a nice highlight on his head. So I don't want to go so light that the highlight won't show up. That's the main thing. That's one big thing to consider when you paint white. Everything needs to be darker than your highlight, which a lot of times is pure white. I'm getting rid of any of this that I think might interfere. It's all pretty light over there. Chest is a little darker. All right, so again, I've laid some pure white out here. And put a little tiny bit of yellow in it. That's usually what I would do to get it. I'd make a warm white for my lightest light. We'll take a little bit of our mud. And mix it in. Now the darkest part of that bird, we'll start, well, I usually start with the darkest part. Let's do that. We'll go ahead and we'll try our mud mixture for the darker side, and we'll see how that works. It is fairly dark over there away from the light. And I don't want to, you know, like always, I don't want to overwork him. Put a little touch of solvent in so it'll move around. Got these little holes in it, as you can see. I've painted around. That's what the dark spots are. No, I don't want to do that. I got too light there. I was trying to lighten it up a little bit. Still too light. Let's keep it dark. It felt just a bit dark, so it's his little face there. Let me get my little brush back out. This might be too bushy. We might have to get a liner brush. His little nose is there. You know, we could come back and, you know, really detail this guy. You know, you could go around and, but let's try that highlight on his head. Not seeing actually many highlights. A few. All right, I think we'll move on and leave him alone for a little while, decide how he feels to us. You know, I've left some of this pink showing through. Our next lightest light actually would be probably that cork at the top. So I'm just going to take some ochre and some white and a touch of our mud. All right, let's move to this. This is probably our next lightest object. And I did put some phthalo blue on here tonight. I love phthalo blue, if you don't go crazy with it. Yeah, I'm first going to come up with a color that I like, and then I'm going to, nice I had a couple cameras, wouldn't it? And you could have one on me color mixing. And we're going to put some of our mud in each of those. which is probably graying down the colors, of course. Of course it would. All right, we'll go after the darkest part of that first. There's a few areas on it that's pretty dark. I don't know if you can tell, it's a blue-green with our mud color in it. And we're using, you know, a pretty large paintbrush, maybe larger than you would be comfortable with. I try to stay as large as I can. It helps keep me looser. Well, kind of struggling to get dark enough there. Okay, I'm looking, that goes behind there. This feels a little Well, somebody asked me to talk a little bit about palette knives. I have done whole paintings with them. I tend to mostly mix paint with them and do detail with them, as you know. I think they're like anything. You need to practice with them and learn to have a good feel for them. You know, maybe take a piece of canvas paper and just keep loading the knife and laying paint down, you know, so you're comfortable with it. I took a workshop once where the guy had us line up, and of course I used a palette knife, come up and just, some people never work with them, I guess, much, and just see how it feels. But a lot of it's how you load. Of course it is. It's how you load it. It's how you put it on the canvas. If you're going for a real tiny little line, you know, you want to get a small amount of paint. When I did that workshop with Mark Bojas, he would actually determine the length that he wanted, and he would wipe it off to get the exact length that he wanted on his palette knife. He's very particular. And then you got to decide, like I said, a lot of it comes from, you're not going completely flat with it, but you're tipping it down toward the flat side some. Again, it's hard to, it's one of those things you get a feel for, I think. But I love a palette knife because it can lay such a nice little fine edge that you can't always get with a little liner brush. So I think it's worth learning to use. I mean, I've done whole paintings with them too, but usually I use them for embellishments. You'll see me use them for windows, around windows. And I'm an impressionist, so I don't expect things to be perfect, nor do I want them to be. But they're really nice for adding, again, little highlights. But little tiny lines, that's probably the thing they're most useful for. You know, and it's all, you want to load it with a thin line of paint. I'm catching light. And then be careful how you lay it. It's hard to, again, I think it's one of those things you got to practice and get the feel for. But it's worth, again, it's worth learning. I mean, this may not feel quite right yet, but that's okay. We're going to move on to this guy now. And actually, a lot of the colors we used in this will work in this too. I'm going to first go after the darkest areas I see. You can see it's dark, but it leans toward the green. I see darkness down here through the bottom. And, you know, actually the background is dark, so trying to look around, see what I'm seeing. There's some much lighter areas too. Okay, I'll tell you something. that I've done here. I've pulled this down lower than it is too. Let me look at that. This goes up. Yeah, this is not down as low as I have it. All right, let's look at that again. We got to bring that down too. That'd be about right, wouldn't it? Better to scrape it off than to fight it, you know. Mixing up more of that phthalo blue and yellow, and of course some of our mud. You know, it's hard to get. I'm going to put a little more yellow in that. This bottle leans a little more that way, more than this. Looking for the highlights. Oop. Moving that around, huh? I'm just going to lay it down like I did there and kind of move it around with the tip of a knife. Kind of like sculpting. Well, let's mix up something for the background. Making more of my mud. Just have it ready there for me. All right, the background's going to be transparent red oxide and ultramarine. We'll get a bigger brush. We'll put that shadow in there first with the dark mixture the way it is. Try to put in there what I see. Like I said, there's light coming through the bottle, so we'll be lightening some of that. You know, and you could decide for color harmony. You know, with a painting like this, you could have mix some of a phthalo blue mixture into everything too. All right, so into that mixture, we'll lighten it up with some white. And I may actually put a little bit of the phthalo blue mixture into that. I am. Well, you can tell, can't you? Yeah. And I just grabbed a little bit of it. It's a very intense color, that's for sure. Yeah, the color that's coming through the bottle right in here is actually more yellow looking and lighter. You know, that shadow area may not work. We'll have to decide. I don't know that that works. That odd shaped shadow area there. I don't feel like it does. We'll do a little blending of it. Yeah, we did get a little ahead of ourselves there. We should have put in our shadow first. And we've got to ground our objects yet. I kind of lost that. make an orange up here. Lighten it up. Put a little bit of our mud. But it really grays it down. You know, maybe you won't like that because, you know, you're not getting that real intense color that way. I'm going to wipe this off. I'm going at that again, but a little less of my mud. I'm going to take some of my phthalo and some of the mud. Still don't feel like those darks are dark enough. You know, you may start with your darks, but a lot of times you have to come back in and reestablish them. I've talked about that before. You know, there's actually a lot of things going on in that bottle, you know. And I'm going to introduce some of this into the bird. because again, we're going for color harmony, so. I feel like this whole area ought to be a bit darker than it is. You know, because you're seeing through the bottle to the background. All right. Soften a few edges. And I like the pink glow, I think, that I'm getting around the bird. I like seeing this pink. I feel like the bottle came out a little shorter, perhaps. You know, and I could bring it up just a little bit, but it's getting awful close to the edge then, you know, if you frame it, so. Still messing around with a little dark. All right, we'll quit playing with it. It's been just about an hour. Let's see if we can stick our mat around it. I don't know how well that'll work. Not very, because I don't have it hung up this time. But we'll block it off a little bit and you can kind of tell. Nah, it's not really going to work, is it? We'll just set it out in front like that, and then you can kind of get an idea. Kind of cleans it up a little bit. All right, there's our bird. See all our pink showing through. So, you know, these are pretty quick paintings, so I'm never completely, you know, sure they're done. Sometimes, you know, you do a few more little tweaks and it really finishes it off. Not sure I'm in love with the background. I don't know. Again, I have to look at it and decide. Like I said, you know, sometimes you sit down and spend another half an hour on it, and it really, you know, finishes it off nicely. So we'll look at it and decide. I think I need to explain the top of that cork better. So hard to call it finished, you know, and I would prefer a soft edge from where the background meets the foreground. So that was a little hard. So, oh, there you go. See, keep messing with it till you mess it up good. I got paint on that brush, so. Takes two artists to do a painting. One to tell them, one to paint it, one to say when it's finished, right? I'm sure you've heard that. Back away from the canvas, right? Quit farting with it. All right, I'm going to leave it alone for tonight. I'm going to go relax and just look at it and decide what I like and what I don't like. But we got, you know, that blue is mixed everywhere in the background, and so hopefully it feels harmonious. Either way, I enjoyed it. It was fun. All right, like and subscribe if you haven't done that yet, please, and we'll do this again before too long. I keep waiting to get outside, take you outside, but it hasn't gotten nice enough yet. Soon it'll be hotter than heck, right? And I'll be complaining about that. I said I just complain all year round. All right, please join me next time. Watch for me. You have a nice evening.